Hi, everyone, and welcome to our session on professional problem solving. My name is Karin Krause, and I am the American Floral Endowment's Manager of Communications and Outreach, as well as the staff liaison to the Young Professionals Council. This session is being hosted by AFE's Young Professionals Council, or YPC for short, which is comprised of young floral industry members ages 18 to 35 years old. The Council offers webinars, networking, and volunteer opportunities to aid in personal and professional development for those in the floral industry. The YPC is completely free to join, so if you're looking for more resources like this, consider signing up today at endowment.org/YPC. This presentation is being recorded and will be made available through AFE's YouTube. At the end of the presentation, we will stop the recording for additional networking and questions. So if you'd prefer to ask something outside of the recording, you can hold your question until then. That being said, this is a fully interactive session. So if you'd like to chime in throughout, you are welcome to. Alternatively, you can submit your questions through the chat if you'd prefer. Our presenter today is Laura Walsh. Laura is the Director of Marketing for Smithers-Oasis. Having spent her life in agriculture, she joined the floral industry 5 years ago and brings over 17 years of marketing experience. Over the years, Laura has taught marketing courses at the collegiate level and enjoys coaching and mentoring young business professionals. Welcome, Laura, and thank you for leading the session.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Karin. I'm excited to be here. This is awesome. I had the privilege to join the group, I guess it was January, right? Where we did some personal development. So I am thrilled to be asked back again to spend a little time with you guys. So an hour goes by like that. We're going to blink and it's going to be done. So I'm going to go ahead and get into this a little bit. So as Karin said, my name's Laura. I'm the Director of Marketing for Smithers-Oasis North American Floral. Just quick little things about me. I heart agriculture. I've always been a part of ag in some capacity in my life. I grew up on an Angus cattle farm in Southern Ohio. I was an FFA student, and I continued to work in careers in agriculture throughout my professional life, which was pretty exciting. I love business, marketing, learning, leadership, flowers, and plants, right? So I feel like I've definitely found the best place to be here at Smithers-Oasis. And I'm newly minted, it's very exciting, newly minted, PFCI, AAF, and CFD. So I'm extremely honored and humbled to have some of these new credentials under my belt. Okay. We have
Laura, excuse me, can you tell everyone what your initials stand for? They might not know.
Sure, I'd love to. So PFCI is Professional Floral Communicators Institute. AAF is the Academy, what is it? The American Academy of Floriculture. Sorry, that threw me for a second. And then CFD is a certified floral designer.
Thank you.
Awesome. Very cool. So we've got a lot of things that we're going to review here today. So like we said, we're going to get right into it, and we're going to start with an assessment on our problem-solving abilities, right? Because in order to know where we're going, it's really the best if we know where we're at right now, so that if we can build a plan, we can start by assessing where we're at. So we're going to see how problem-solving we really are. And then after that, we're going to just talk a little bit about how maybe we could improve our problem-solving abilities by using a STAR method. And we'll get into what a STAR method is here in a bit. But as we get into this assessment, I give you a quote, which I encourage you to maybe pause and think about a little bit. But we cannot solve our problems with the same level of thinking that created them. Okay? So when we're looking to solve a problem, we maybe have to elevate our thinking, maybe change our mindset a little bit, and maybe get a little creative with how we're going to solve them. And good old Albert Einstein, he's attributed with this quote, and I would say that probably there weren't many people who would think that he wasn't very good at solving problems, right? Like he's the man of solving problems. Maybe one or two out there, but for the most part, pretty good. So as we think about how we can change our mindset and how we can change our thought, I also would like to say another good quote from Socrates: "To know thyself is the beginning of wisdom." Okay, so we're gonna need to understand who we are and what we bring to the table at the beginning of our wisdom, or maybe in the beginning of our problem solving too. All right, so let's get into it. So here's what you need for your self-assessment. This is not a trick. Don't overthink this. You're gonna need a piece of paper. I know who uses paper, right? Find a scrap, grab an Excel spreadsheet. If you're more of the typey type kind, that's fine too. You know, a pen would be great. And then you're gonna need to have a little bit of speed because we're gonna be going through this assessment fairly quickly, okay? And so don't overthink it. You're just choosing numbers, not getting married. Whatever your assessment comes out to be, I mean, it is what it is. And you can definitely learn a little bit about yourself, but don't overthink it. So I'm going to provide you some questions on the next screen. And for each of those statements, I want you to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5. If when you read the statement, you strongly disagree and you're like, nope, that's not me. I'm not good at that. That's not my thing. Give yourself, you know, a 1 or a 2 or something on the lower end. If you read the statement and say to yourself, whoa, this is so me. I'm so good at this. I strongly agree with you at this. Go ahead and give yourself something on the higher end of the 4 and the 5. And if you're somewhere in the neutral, perhaps maybe just pick 3. So be honest in your assessment. Nobody's going to be looking over your shoulder. This is just for you, so you can learn a little bit about your problem solving abilities. Okay, so are we ready? We understand the ground rules. We're set. Okay. Question number 1. I am skilled at identifying the root causes of problems. So just give yourself a 1 through a 5. I actively seek input and feedback from others when faced with a challenging problem. I am effective at breaking complex problems into smaller, manageable parts. I can adapt my problem-solving approach to different situations and challenges. I stay calm and composed when under pressure while solving problems. All right, we're going to go on to the next page. I communicate my problem-solving processes and solutions clearly to others. 1 to a 5. I actively seek out opportunities to learn and improve my problem-solving skills. I consider the ethical implications of my problem-solving solutions. I am resourceful and can find creative solutions to resource constraints. I track and measure the outcomes of my problem-solving efforts to assess effectiveness. All right, 2 more pages. We're getting close. Keep scribbling your numbers. I proactively identify potential problems before they become critical issues. 1 through 5. I seek continuous feedback from colleagues and superiors to improve my problem-solving skills. I am confident in my ability to find solutions to a wide range of professional challenges. I can effectively prioritize and manage multiple problems at once. I am comfortable taking calculated risks when solving problems. We're in the home stretch. Last set of questions, so close. I can analyze data and information effectively to inform my problem-solving decisions. I seek out diverse perspectives and ideas when working on problems. I proactively delegate problem-solving tasks to others when appropriate. I actively engage in problem-solving training and development opportunities, like this one. I consistently follow through on implementing solutions to problems. All right, you survived the assessment. Congratulations. So now what I'd like you to do is add up your score. So go through your list of your 20 questions, and this is where if you did it on an Excel file, you're going to be even speedier, and sum up all of your questions to obtain your total score. So you should have a range of 20 being the lowest. So let's say you gave yourself a 1 on every one of those 20 questions, all the way up to getting 100 points if you're pretty darn perfect at problem solving. So that's where you could score yourself. So I'll give you guys just a minute to do the math. All right. Okay. So now that you've gone ahead and you've put your score together, let's look at this a little bit. So to understand your score, so if you're, somewhere in that lower range, that, that 20 to 40 type of range, you're going to have a little bit more of a below average type of problem solving ability. Anything that you're going to have from that 40 to 60, you're going to be in that average range. From 60 to 80, you're probably a little bit above average on your problem solving abilities. And anything that's an 80 to 100, you're probably sitting there pretty skilled, highly skilled at problem solving. So I'd like to tell you guys too, as you just took this assessment, it's self-reflection, right? There's lots of things that you can consider as you're, considering what your problem solving abilities are. And it's, meant for some good self-reflection. And it's not necessarily comprehensive, but it's a good way to kind of get a feel for how you're doing with your problem solving abilities. So, okay. So let's say you've gone through this assessment and you say to yourself, yep, you know what? A 40 to 60 range of being average is not really where I want to be, or in that 60 to 80, I could probably up my game a little bit. What can you do, right? So that's really what we want to spend a little time today at understanding. Now that we know where we kind of are and just doing this quick assessment, what can we do today, right now, when we get off this phone call, in the future, tomorrow when we get a tough problem, 2 weeks from now, a year from now, we need a tool in our tool belt that we can use to help us be more successful in problem solving. So with that, let's talk a little bit about the STAR model. Okay, so the STAR model stands for stop, think, act, and review. Okay, so this is probably more of a surprising thing. Anybody on this phone call who knows me, and there's a few of you, it's interesting that I deploy a model that really requires us to stop and try to separate our data and have a bit more of a quantitative understanding of what our problem exactly is. Okay, so the STAR model helps us to create measurable quantitative data, and it allows us to use that information and that input to help to drive more fact-based decisions. Okay, and so I tell everybody I'm a highly creative individual. Don't math at me. So this is another one of those instances where this is kind of a little bit more challenging for kind of how my brain works, but it's invaluable to stop, collect data, create some measurable, dimensions, and really start to implement how you can make a problem-solving solution. So in the STAR model, the stop, think, act, and review, we start with our stop, right? So when you're faced with a big challenge, when you've got a problem that, you just can't figure out or you just can't seem to solve, the best place that you can truly be is to stop and acknowledge the problem, right? So if you stop and acknowledge the problem, you're kind of starting to already take its power away, right? Identifying it clearly, taking time to understand the scope and the impact of the problem and the specific issue that's truly involved. I used to have a business mentor of mine. When he would talk about problems, he kind of described it as like problems, they fly on the wind and, they might cyclone around you and, you're being just, followed by the wind of problems. So he would encourage us to always turn off the fan, right? So if you've got all these problems swirling around you, the first thing you need to do is recognize it and try to take a step to stop, right? To stop what you've got going on. Acknowledge that there's an issue and then start to understand the scope. From here, you're going to want to pause and try to gather some information, some good relevant information. So this might be, really assessing the problem that you have and maybe trying to talk to your colleagues or talk to some experts, call on a good team member, maybe a trusted individual or a mentor, and try to gather more information, right? So that you can truly understand what exactly the issue is and make sure that you've got any kind of documentation and resources within that piece. So then once we've stopped and we've recognized the problem, from here, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start to think, okay? So our first step of the thinking side of things is really truly to create a brainstorm. And under this is probably one of the hardest, most challenging areas. Okay, so it's easy to say that we're going to want to brainstorm, but I don't know about you guys, but how many of you guys, when you have a problem, you ultimately have the solution, like you already know how to fix it, so you don't need to brainstorm it. I mean, I already know how to do this. I'm just gonna jump to the solving part. So I'd really encourage you to stop and analyze all that information for your problem, and critically analyze it to help to understand truly what your root cause of your problem could potentially be. And maybe engage with some good creative thinking and try to consider other perspectives, try to see things, maybe from somebody else's walk of life or maybe somebody else's interpretation of what an issue or a potential problem could be or what it could potentially turn out to be and look like. So when you're stopping to think and you're going to consider all of your brainstorms, it's a good opportunity to then consider your options, okay? So from here, you're going to want to evaluate all your potential solutions that you've generated, right? So you know how they say in brainstorming, there's no bad ideas. Well, it's true. But when we're really trying to get to the point of considering what our options are, spoiler alert, there might be some bad ideas in this, right? And at this point in time, we might start to cut a few of them out, right? We might look at a program and say, yeah, you know what? I've got this problem and the way I can solve it is with a $50,000 expenditure. Well, that might not be feasible, right? Like that might not be the way that you can get out of your problem. So there might be times that you're going to need to really truly assess what your options are and maybe see if it's really cost effective or that maybe do you have the right skill set to solve the problem and really try to assess what's really potentially going to work for you. And then from there, you're going to prioritize some of your most promising options, right? Maybe just go ahead and when you're in this thinking side of things and you're brainstorming and collecting these options, mark stuff out, draw lines, make it an active, participation type of thing, and go ahead and start to prioritize what could probably actually help you create a solution or not. And then from there on your thinking side of things, you're going to set some goals and objectives, right? Because it's no good if you've just thought about things and you've maybe assessed, 3 or 4 or 12 paths in life. But if you're not going to understand how to set meaningful goals and objectives, that might be a little bit challenging when it comes to your problem solving. So from here, you're going to want to make sure that you're going to clearly define your objectives and your goals, right? This can help you stay focused. Focus is often such a challenge for us in a busy business world, right? We all have so many things pulling our attention. So setting goals and objectives is a great way for us to help, overcome, situations and opportunities with some good problem solving skills. And feel free if anybody's got any additional color. If not, I'm just gonna keep talking here. And then once we've stopped and we did some thinking, now the important part is we got to do something, guys. We have to act. This is probably one of the biggest killers of problem solving and innovation and ideas, right? Like when we just write them all down and we've got our plans and we've got our objectives, but we never do the thing, right? We never get going. We never get moving. And this can be a real killer of being able to solve our problems and create, innovative solutions. So from here, to help us get moving, to help us get some action going, I'd encourage you to develop an action plan, right? Like, what's your roadmap? Where are you going? Create a plan of what exactly you would need to do to implement the solutions that you already brainstormed, that you prioritize, and that you put some objectives and some goals to, right? You know, in this case, assign responsibilities, set deadlines, and maybe consider, what do you need to actually get this done? If it's problem solving for you independently, all of the responsibilities probably will fall to you, right? And that's okay. And that's okay. Be reasonable with your deadlines and what resources that you personally have to give to this problem solving end of the world. And then once you've created your roadmap, you've got your vision of where you're going, it's time to go ahead and get implementing on the plan. And so on this side of things, we're going to want to make sure that, you know, everyone is aware of their responsibilities and understands the timeline, right? And so this is another one of these things. So maybe as you're working through your career as the young professionals that you guys are, maybe some of it is working with other people, right? And, you know, wanting to make sure that they understand what their responsibilities and the timeline of when things need to happen. You might need to rely on somebody else to hold you accountable, right? So that might be something that might be important for you to share with perhaps, you know, an individual of that could be a responsibility or a timeline to check on you or ask if you've completed XYZ by a certain amount of time. But make sure that when you're developing your action plan and you're implementing your plan, that you have the foresight to think about that timeline to make sure that it's even reasonable, right? To make sure that it's possible to achieve these goals and these objectives and make sure that everything can happen on an appropriate timeline. And then from there, you have to adapt as needed. So, I mean, I don't know about you, but Karin, Gracie, Dave, have you guys ever had plans that didn't work out the first time? Yeah, I mean, we'd like to think that we could spend every day, you know, getting the exact right plan at the right time. But let's be honest, there's a lot of variables in life. And as we go through and, you know, try to achieve goals and objectives, sometimes we have to be flexible. And just because we, you know, stopped our activity, we thought about it, we brainstormed a bunch of wonderful, great things, and then we got moving, didn't mean that we necessarily got moving on the right things. And sometimes we might need to adapt. And when it's time to adapt, you know, we can go back to the beginning of the process, right? We can go back to the beginning of our STAR model and we can say to ourselves, okay, we're going to start at the top again and start to rethink the whole process again and continue to adapt and communicate with teams and stakeholders and everybody who's involved in it. And then finally, the last part of our STAR model is review. So a couple questions that you can ask yourself, you know, with your problem solving abilities and using this methodology is, did the solution actually did it really address the problem? Did I really solve anything? And what were the key outcomes and metrics of my success, right? So these are good questions that I would encourage you that as you go through, you know, trying to problem solve, that you should stop and ask yourself, you know, have you really met your goals and objectives? Go back to your list, go back to the things that you wrote down and consider, were you really successful? And were my metrics successful? What were my KPIs? And then I'd really encourage you from there to make sure that you share your insights with others. That's so important. As we solve problems, it's important to share what we've learned, right? It's important to share with others so that, you know, maybe we can grow a little bit more, grow a little bit differently, not repeat our mistakes in the future and make sure that, you know, we're helping the whole organization thrive. So let's say in the future, they're ever met with a similar challenge, that they too can have the understanding and the same successful outcomes or unsuccessful outcomes. So we'd encourage you to review. Okay, we've stopped, we thought, we acted, we're reviewing. This is the most important step of the entire model. What did you learn? What did you learn, right? What did you learn from this? And I always like to say, I like to talk about present Laura and future Laura. And I always try to put things under the perspective of, how does present Laura feel about this compared to what will future Laura think of this? And oftentimes this last step to really dive into what did you learn through your problem solving and what did you learn about yourself really is one of those extra steps that, we often tell ourselves that we don't have time to do. But really at the end of the day, if you take time today to do those activities, that future Laura will really appreciate that, right? Like present Laura probably doesn't want to make the time to really sit down and decide what she's learned. She probably wants to go watch some cat videos on TikTok. I don't know. But taking time to do these activities can really help us to be successful. Because after all, those who live an unexamined life blindly repeat the past, right? And it's really absolutely true. So if you don't take time to assess and determine what exactly did you learn from your problem through your implementation of your STAR model, who's to say you're not going to do the same stupid thing tomorrow, right? Right? Because you didn't internalize it, you didn't assess it, you didn't really, learn and understand and learn a little bit more, about yourself. So with that being said, I would say that when you consider the entire model, that's probably the most important part, is that review part and making sure that you have some good understanding of what exactly you learned. Some things are good, some things are bad, but they're both okay. Okay, so wrapping up on this, and Karin and Gracie, we were afraid we were going to be overtime, and now we're doing great. So when you think about using the STAR model, as we've just kind of discussed here today, the four major things that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to stop, right? So when you're having a problem, when you need to approach something, just stop, cool your jets, right? Take some time, take a beat, assess what's going on, get all your good inputs, understand the stakeholders, all of the things around that. And then you're going to stop and you're going to do your thinking, in your brain, where you do your thinking. And come up with your brainstorms. You're going to want to prioritize your list. You're going to want to understand your different options that are there for you to be able to be successful. And then from there, you're going to have to get moving and act. Get going, because really thinking about things and wishing that your problems are going to change or solve, it's not really going to do anything. It probably isn't really going to get solved. And then last but not least, you're going to want to make sure that you review and you learn from the process so that you can recognize it in the future. So next time when you see some, road hazards ahead, when you're running into a problem, I'd encourage you to pull out that STAR model and solve your problem. So there you go. So with that, this is the short of my spiel. Time is precious. Thanks for sharing yours. And I will kick it back over to Karin and Gracie and the team for any additional questions or conversations.